All those in favor with proceeding with that agenda, please vote by saying yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. Motion carries. We do have Rebecca joining us tonight on the phone. So welcome, Rebecca. And let's see here.
Thank you, Robin.
You're welcome. Our first item on the agenda, well, I'm sure you're all here to see us, right? The school board members? Student performances, Music in Our Schools Month. Would you like to kick us off, Dr. Gandhi?
Sure. I am actually going to pass it over to Ainsley to make the introductions, but it is Music in Our Schools Month, so I think this board meeting and the next, we are going to see some fantastic performances.
Okay. Yes, March is officially Music in Our Schools Month, when we celebrate the incredibly strong music program that Fargo Public Schools has. We recognize the dedicated music teachers, and we thank the district and the board for making music a priority in the Fargo Public Schools. On the screen, you can see academic and life skills that are taught through music education. A few that stuck out to me: collaboration, communication, empathy, creative thinking, perseverance, and emotional regulation. Obviously, there's a plethora up there. I could go on and on about them, but I will wait until the next meeting to do that. Today, I would like to celebrate some students and share some music with you. If you happen to read the most recent edition of The Journey, you may have noticed many students that were accepted into all-state performing groups: band, orchestra, choir, and jazz choir, and jazz band. And Fargo had 87 students that were accepted into those groups. Two of those students are here for you today to perform for you. Joanna Lynn and Marcus Hart are here from Davies High School. They'll be performing a clarinet and soprano saxophone duet. These students had a band concert last night, the Raging Red Band Festival today, which we're keeping some good news secret, and then All-State, of course, which is coming up in a few weeks. And Marcus also shared with me he had a rehearsal and is going to rehearsal and then has another group activity after. So we're thankful that you're here to share with us. Joanna is a senior. She'll be playing clarinet, and she is in the All-State Orchestra this year. And Marcus is a sophomore, and though he's playing saxophone for us today, he is actually going to be in the All-State Choir. I also want to quickly point out that last year there were 4 Fargo students that scored a perfect score on the ACTs, and all 4 of those students are very involved in the music program at the Fargo Public Schools. In fact, 3 of those 4, well, all 4 were in all-state groups last year, and 3 of those 4 were section leaders for their section at All-State. And Joanna is one of those, and she actually very shyly and politely said, it's actually been 2 years that I was section leader. And this year she did tie with somebody, so she's giving that person an opportunity. So after Joanna and Marcus perform for you, they're going to do some sharing of their experiences in music, where it's taken them, and some quite frankly astonishing things that they've done with it. So without further ado, Joanna Lynn and Marcus Hart will be performing the first movement of Gordon Jacobs' saxophone duet.
Well, hi, I'm Marcus Hart from Davies High School. I think we'd both just really like to thank you for the continuous support in music. It's a huge influence in many students' lives, and I'm really grateful for it and all of the opportunities it's brought me through, like all the bands, choirs, theatrics. It's just a huge part of my life. So really thank you for all the continuous support. I really appreciate it, and I know many others do too.
Okay, my name is Joanna Lynn. I have a little bit of a longer speech. I'm a senior at Davies High School and a pianist and clarinetist. I started playing the clarinet 7 years ago in 6th grade, and I didn't really have any big dreams or expectations for my playing. But I couldn't be more glad that I've continued the clarinet. Music has allowed me to meet some of the kindest and funniest people through playing in ensembles like the Ephemeria Youth Symphony, our school band, and many local honor bands. Music has taught me perseverance and dedication, and has even allowed me to travel across the country. Last summer, I was extremely honored to be one of 3 clarinetists nationwide to perform on tour with the National Youth Orchestra 2. We played in Miami and New York City, and ended our tour with a performance in Carnegie Hall. That was truly the best summer I've ever had in my 17 years of life. And I now have friends from all over the country. I couldn't be more grateful to represent my state, and especially to prove that arts from Fargo have a place nationally. Because of my love for music, I also founded the 501c3 nonprofit Resonate 2 years ago. My mission through Resonate is to bring high-quality music exposure, education, and inspiration to rural areas. This is done through inspired performances, where local chamber ensembles travel to a rural school, perform, and then uniquely explain how they interpreted the music. Resonate has since inspired over 117 young musicians from 3 schools and will have performed at 9 rural towns by the end of this school year. Music has opened the door to so many incredible experiences and people. And you don't have to be a music major to appreciate everything that Fargo Public Schools music has had to offer. I'm actually majoring in business and international studies, but music will always be a lifelong love of mine. I'm so grateful that I've had the opportunity to grow as a musician and a person, and I hope the Fargo Public Schools can continue providing the gift of music to many more students in many years to come. Thank you.
Marcus and Joanna, thank you so much for sharing with us. I also would like to thank Mr. Brandenburg, who is behind the pole there. He helped in setting this all up, and thank you, Mr. Brandenburg, for your excellent music education that you share with your students. And thank you for your continued support for music in the schools.
I was waiting for more. Okay, recognition of the audience. We have one person that signed up to address the board tonight. Her name is Victoria Johnson. Victoria, if you'd like to come to the podium, please. When you do, I'll read a statement here. At this time, the board will hear comments from the public. We ask that each speaker who has signed up to address the board state their name and address for the record. We would also ask that speakers refrain from using this forum to criticize or complain about a specific employee by name. The board is interested in your comments and will listen carefully, but is not obligated to respond to or debate issues in this forum. Should you desire a written response to a specific question, you may request it. This evening, each speaker will be allotted a maximum of 5 minutes. Welcome,
Hi.
Victoria.
Hi, thank you. My name is Victoria Johnson. I promise I don't have any surprises for you today. However, I just want to share with you that we have an event coming up this Tuesday, and I know a lot of you board members, you are a strong advocate for our families in the community and children. So I just thought I'll come up here and share that with you. So like I said, nothing surprise. Can I pass the flyer? Okay, so I'm with a grassroots organization called Families United for Advocacy. What we do is we work with families all over. It doesn't matter if you have a child with neurodiverse or not. We connect you with services. We find services for families. We try to help families in the ways we can, be supportive, provide that support for the families, even just going into IEP meetings, doctor's appointments, or just, try to come in when they have any issue going on with, either tenants, landlord, or whatever. We just try to provide that support and help advocate for that families. So we have an event coming up on the 17th. I apologize to anybody who's Irish because we didn't know it was, a holiday, and so a lot of my friends who are Irish are mad at me and told me how you're doing it on that day. So I apologize to them, and we'll make sure we have green cookies, okay? So that will be on the 17th at 4 to 6 p.m., and we have a speaker coming from the Division of Special Health Services. Probably a lot of you know or don't know them. They do a lot of stuff with families, and a lot of times people don't even know that we have that services available to families in our community. And so we reached out to them from Bismarck, and somebody's coming, so to speak to families. Anybody's welcome. This is open to public, to just share what services they provide and how family can access it. And we have Embrace Therapy is going to come in and talk about early interventions and how family can go through and get help from them and stuff like that. So we look forward to it, and so I thought I'll come up here and share that with you. And like I said, we will have a green cookies that day.
Thank you so much, Victoria.
Yep.
Have
Do
a
you guys
nice
have any
evening.
questions?
Oh, go ahead, Brandy.
So is it in the basement then? It's lower level, but I guess I don't know where the community room is. Is it downstairs?
Yep, so when you go to that west wing of JCPenney,
Yep.
just right, like we're going down there, there's a huge community room in there.
And how often do you guys meet?
For this event? No, this is gonna be the first event we're opening it to public.
Oh,
We
okay.
do have, we do different things with parents, where we meet with parents and just listen to their concerns, what kind of problems they're having, like accessing services, and like just helping, support them and try connect them with other agencies and things like that. But we don't open that to public, so we kind of have certain, kind of like parents, we try to provide that privacy and that safe environment where parents can feel like they can express themselves without feeling that retaliation or feeling like, are they going to be in front of a media or whatever. So we do that once in a while. We'll meet with families who wants to meet with us. But this will be public event, so
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing.
yeah, thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. On to staff reports. RS results. You know what? I'm just going to let you introduce it. STEAM monitoring, arts and humanities.
Sure. So we have a couple of different staff reports today, but we're going to start with a report on our art program with Ms. Sharon Idy.
Good evening. Sure. No, I don't have a voice. My name is Sharon Idy, and I am a elementary art teacher at Hawthorne Clara Barton. and I'm also the visual arts curriculum specialist. I'm here tonight to talk about all of the teachers across the district who, both elementary, middle school, high school, who use components of STEAM and the 21st century skills in their classroom. But I'm also here to say I'd like to introduce one of those teachers, Mrs. Cheryl Bombiger, who is a master teacher at Clara Barton, and she engages her grade 3 students by giving them the opportunity to show what they know through art, music, and movement. And she has invited 4 of her 3rd grade students to present some of what they are learning, and they have asked to introduce themselves. So here are 3rd grade students from Clara Barton.
Welcome.
Good evening. The value of STEAM education and 21st century skills that our students have when we embed arts education can prove invaluable. It can improve social emotional skills, it can increase confidence, it can strengthen knowledge, and it can decrease anxiety in our scholars. We have some wonderful, amazing children here from 3rd grade, and they are going to tell you about some of the wonderful things that we're doing to STEAM up our classroom.
Good evening. My name is Evie. This is Lawrence, Job, and Mia. When you think about George Washington, you probably think about him as the president, the general. But do you ever think about George Washington the farmer? To celebrate George Washington's birthday and the impact he had on our nation, our class took a little deeper and implemented the Fargo Public Schools strategic initiative in the area of STEAM education: science, technology, engineering, arts, and math.
Our class PBL includes both whole group learning as well as students branching off and engaging in personalized learning.
In addition to the discussions and research, including talking about Washington's inventions of the 16-sided barn and plow, we discuss how thinking creative will assist us in designing and engineering our own creations to help the world in the near future.
The 3rd graders in our class used their bioengineering skills as they cross-pollinated a new plant, like a malkini, a melon and a zucchini, or an orange pine, the cross between an orange and a pineapple. Students designed their new plant in an artistic way and presented them on a diorama, and then on Flipgrid, using technology to give evidence of what we learned. The QR code on the corner of these genetically engineered plant slide will take you to a video presentation where students displayed their communication skills about their project. In addition, our class sings. We sing academic songs. In this case, we've sang songs including George Washington, the Constitution, Freedom, Black Blizzard, even Simple Machines, Photosynthesis, and Popcorn, just to name a few. All students also have access to these songs on Google Classroom. These songs improve our reading, writing, and vocabulary. They also have educational videos and ed puzzles embedded on the slides. Another way students can learn through technology. Here, the arts comes in the form of music. We use movement and music each and every day in our classroom, which helps us learn.
Yes, we even sing facts about popcorn. Even though George Washington grew many types of corn, he did not grow popcorn, but in our opinion, the best type of corn. Students wishing to spend their times eating popcorn and learning more about this interesting crop was Popcorn Movie Day. Their goal is simply writing an assignment on popcorn.
Other students are learning about crops that could be made into fiber. One is the hemp Washington grew that was made into twine, fishing nets, and clothing. The other is cotton. Students can choose to do research on cotton and participate in weaving a colonial rug as well.
Flipgrid presentations were created as students acted out the role of George Washington the farmer with their hats and hair. Students created 3D pyramids, including 4 triangles and a rectangular bottom. Students designed artwork, including facts, and a Flipgrid presentation on this project as well.
Our lessons take us to contests as well in the area of STEAM. Check out the link for the video for the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, a math song, and a puppet show.
In addition, students can participate in a state agriculture contest, the Keep North Dakota Clean drawing contest, and Prairie Public's writing contest.
We also used life science as part of our art experience, such as making clay pots when we went to the Plains Art Museum.
Students learn about seeds and their life cycle. Sorting and planting seeds that George Washington planted makes our agricultural adventure so much more fun. STEAM adventures continue in the spring with the school's gardens. Hands-on learning.
Please consider this an invitation to come and visit our class, see how we steam up our learning, and join us for academic song.
Thank you for inviting us.
Well, that was impressive, guys. Thank you. Wow. You speak better than a lot of adults that I know. Do we have any questions for our performers tonight, board? Go ahead, Mr. Rodenbiker.
No questions. I just want to echo those comments. Fantastically well done, students. And I do have to admit I have personal experience with Mrs. Bombiger. My son Jack was in her classroom just last year, and I had plenty of opportunity to see really, just like we saw tonight, how powerfully these techniques are and how important integrating the arts into our curriculum across the sciences and all of the different subjects is to the development of our kids. It's just, they're wicked smart, and our future is very bright. Thank you.
It is. All right. Well, thank you, guys. Thank you for coming after school. We really appreciate you, and we really enjoyed your performance. Thank you. I learned a lot, didn't you guys? Right on. Okay, item 5B on the agenda, 2019-20 Staffing Additions Report. Missy Eidsness and Dr. Gross.
So tonight, we thought we'd go back and look at some of the changes for staffing that we had for this current school year. We're always trying to get better at identifying our emerging needs and how we go about discussing those things, but we also thought it was important to go back and update you on how some of our changes went this year. So I printed out the PowerPoint only because there's a few slides where the writing's small, just to make sure that you had it in front of you tonight. And we do have some guests that are going to help me explain this tonight. So we'll have Patty Cummings and Jason Cressup and Beth Olson will also help with this presentation. So first of all, we always identify our need areas and we look at our strategic priorities for that. And so we look at the academic achievement and growth priority and the positive school culture. When we look at academic achievement and growth, we're looking at maintaining the district class ratios in both regular education and special education. We also look at providing students and teachers with supports. And that comes through our needs assessment as we each year go through that. One of the pieces last year that became very important is we were looking at decentralizing Setting C services from 2 buildings, and that was K-8, and so we expanded that more buildings had level C services for students as we went forward. And then we also had the safety committee that had met all year long and had recommendations for us to look at, and that was again around the idea of that positive school culture and safety. So those priorities. So last year, these were the staffing adjustments that occurred. Just kind of summarizing. We have, I guess, one that we don't spend a lot of time, but maintaining our class size ratio, both secondary and elementary. You can see that we had 10.5 FTEs that were in the secondary due to the enrollment increasing, and also at the elementary 3. Elementary, I know when we look at the overall enrollment, looks pretty flat for last year, but we are having more growth in the south end of town, and so that there were classrooms there that were added. And it was late, it was in August for that. Special education, we had added an assistant director. We had also added a special, or a area service coordinator, and we converted an intern into a ECSE admin, and we will go into more detail on those 3 positions tonight. Level C, we are added 6 FTEs. That included Ben Franklin, Discovery, and 5 elementary schools, and the addition of 3 special ed teachers to meet the need in special education. We also, at the elementary, we had those 3 FTEs for regular classroom, but we also had 4 interns that were converted to deans, and we added nightly security service to our buildings. So those were those additions. And when we were talking about updating, we thought it would be good for us to clarify the role of the new administrative positions and provide an update on how these positions have impacted the system to date. And we'll have special education and elementary building administration kind of go through and highlight the roles and the update. So Patty?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you all. You get the slide. Since I first stood up to this podium about 6 years ago, we have added 389 special education students to this district. So the support that the cabinet has shown and the board has shown has just been overwhelmingly, thank you, I guess. So one of the positions that was added was an assistant director. If you haven't met Allison Keene, and this is just the person as opposed to the position, we found somebody really great for this district, so that's awesome. The position itself allowed us to lead that Level C expansion, and to be specific, Level C for students who exhibit behaviors that significantly impede their ability to achieve their free and appropriate public education. Allison leads professional development with our new teachers and helps set up classroom environment. A lot of the teachers that we have hired, as you know, there is a special education teacher shortage. Many of the teachers come without a lot of experience, and so that leadership from her has been exceptionally well timed. We've been able to split the alphabet. I put that up there in communication with parents. We don't really split the alphabet. It doesn't turn out that way. But the idea being that we can double time on our response to parents, and so I feel that we've been more efficient in that, in providing our just-in-time communication to parents, to principals, and to staff. She has been the point person for leading the startup of the Explorer Academy. She's organized and leading the work groups. She has been an assistant on the parent advisory board that we have, and her position has increased our available to be visibility in the schools to offer teacher and principal support. I've learned that I can't do it all alone. Shoot. But some quotes, I reached out to principals, the student wellness, family facilitators, and then I couldn't resist, and I noticed it wasn't taken off, so it must have made it through just fine, and my own quote on it. But if you look, Shane Martin, very helpful when they've added their specialized programming within the school. Her experience and expertise has been very helpful in creating a systems approach. At South High, they've had some pretty all hands on deck kind of cases. Our assistant director was able to be there and be involved. And then I thought this next statement was really important. Our principal didn't feel guilty about having to ask for help. I just think that's so telling, to think that prior to this they might have felt guilty for reaching out for help. And then I will just tell you, and I don't have to read it, but I'm a lovey-covey-dovey fan, and I want to work in quadrant 4, which is really those important but not urgent things, those things that bring system changes. Prior to this year, we were really burning up quadrant 3, which is urgent and very important. It just doesn't help move us through in a systems change. So thank you that we've been able to do that. So that was with the assistant director. Area service coordinators, those are my liaisons, my direct links to the schools. They are the ones that are there right side by side, working with the principals, working with the special education teachers, and helping meeting some of those meetings. We have a total of 5 area service coordinators. By the time we worked through it, put up a lot of sticky boards on my whiteboard, we ended up with 3 that we assigned to elementary schools and 2 to the secondary schools. Their duties include supporting teachers and administration. They can facilitate complex IEP meetings at buildings. They review and support on compliance work done by our teachers in the world of IDEA, and more importantly, that quadrant 4 of creating improvement process and procedures. They're the people who come to the table and say, here's what's going on in our schools. What can we do to help the teachers help our students? So again, thank you very much for the addition of that. My eyesight, I'm getting older, I can't see. These are they're very good quotes. Just again, leading to the fact that the support has been amazing. Put the reading glasses on. Just the increase in face time, being able to get communication out more quickly, being able to make correct decisions for students and help supporting our teachers. Tanya Wrigley-Lingle, the ASC position is critical. What I love what she said is, as a principal, my background wasn't in special education. And so to have that person there to be able to do that and guide through, make sure that she's reassured that we're doing the right thing and moving the right way through the use of the IDEA. And I really found it impressive that the SWIFTs responded, and knowing that other people who help children do their best find it helpful and beneficial that they have somebody who's knowledgeable in special education in order to help them as well. So we work in tandem, we work together and collaboratively, so it's really nice to know that we're able to support each other in our endeavors. So again, thank you for the addition. We did take the opportunity to transform. We had a 2-year position of an intern, early childhood special education administrator. We made that a permanent position. If we think about it, early childhood may start out with about 80 students at the start of the year. They end up with 120. That's like Madison Elementary population. So we have teachers who now have a permanent position to turn to for help on programming and leading it and developing 3-year strategic plans for their facilities, for their student program, and the development of curriculum and assessment. Prior to that, we weren't able to do that. It was a just-in-time kind of thing. It is with the Circle grants and now applying for the CLOSE grant has allowed for close interaction with the early childhood portion of that. And then just the relationships that we've been able to create in the community, Even Start, Head Start, the Y, and working with other child development programs has just been very beneficial. And the earlier we can get service to students who need it, we know the more success we can expect to see from them in the future years. So again, thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Yeah. Did we want to take questions as we go through each section or at the end?
We can wait till the end.
Okay. I had to put this chart together because we want to talk about the role of deans and interns tonight. And so just for us to have a point of reference, we have elementary principals at the elementary level. We have elementary deans and elementary interns. This is our first year with the dean model as we take a look. And so we wanted to take a look at responsibility. Teacher evaluations couldn't be done by a dean or principal. An intern cannot do the formal teacher evals. The para evaluations or paraeducator evaluations are new this year, and those need to be also done by someone with the administrative level. Student discipline, a principal oversees their building for the discipline across the board. But in our policy, we do say an administrator has to be the one to decide if something is a major incident. And so our deans do all the legwork, get things prepped, but a principal would have to sign off on that, where a dean and a principal both can assign something as a major. Student and teacher support is done by all three. So that is the wonderful thing about all the positions is supporting our students and teachers. And parent communication is also done by all three of those positions. So we just try to take some of those major areas to clarify. But tonight, I'm going to let Jason Cressup and Beth Olson just kind of give you a summary of the dean intern model and how those work together.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Missy, and to be here. First, I'd just like to start by saying that certainly I think we'd all agree that education today versus 10, 15 years ago, it takes a lot more to meet the needs of our kids and even our teachers. And, you know, I believe it was Dr. Gandhi that says it takes a whole village when he first came here. And one piece of that village is certainly the dean model. And when I was thinking about, you know, what we were talking about, and when I make decisions at school, I go back to this very basic philosophy of doing what is best for kids. And so that is the perspective that I'm coming at when speaking today is how can we best serve kids? And I truly believe that this dean model is the best option for us in serving our students. I have, I think, probably, I'm not 100% sure of this, probably the most unique perspective from this, as I think I am the only elementary principal who has had an actual assistant principal, an intern, and a dean. I don't believe there's anybody else that has had that perspective. And so when Missy asked who would like to speak, I said, well, it better be me because I have probably the most experience with that. And I can tell you that certainly I am well in favor of that dean. Having the assistant principal obviously was a great resource to have. And I know that Beth is going to talk a little bit more about her role as that dean. But just I wanted to kind of give you that perspective of my first 2 years. I did not have an assistant principal, a dean, or an intern. It wasn't part of the model that we had. And one of the things that I've found is the depth of what I can offer students, staff, and parents. My first 2 years, and I'll just have some data to support that, and I have it up on the screen, you may have it in front of you, is that in 2012 and 13, which was my first year, I've been 8 years here as a principal at Lewis and Clark, I completed 14 observations. My next year, again, kind of running solo, I did 19 observations. And this year, 2019-20, I will have completed by April 15th, 239 observations. And so that to me says a lot. Now certainly the dean would be able to contribute. Those are my observations, not her observations. And something just happened to resonate with me today that Dr. Gandhi, I believe, is one of his philosophies and beliefs is that principals are instructional leaders. And the more time that we can be in those classrooms, providing support to our teachers, coaching our teachers, that's something we really need to make an effort for. And while I feel like I have a good background and understanding, it is great to have another person that brings a similar educational background and experience and leadership and can work together with me, alongside of me, to bring our teachers up. And when we bring our teachers up, we bring our kids up. And I could not think of a better model that allows us to work towards that. And again, the information that I've shared with you in terms of just being able to give teacher feedback is critical in that. And the dean model, again, is the one I support wholeheartedly. Another piece of data that I wanted to share, and Patty alluded to this, that we've had quite an increase in special education students. And one of the things that I have noticed over the years is, and I think it's a positive thing, is that we are meeting more. We are meeting to problem solve and work through those problems and meet with parents, whether it's an IEP meeting or the meeting before the IEP meeting or the meeting after, whatever it might be. This year I did a quick count and I had over 200 plus IEP meetings that I would have to attend as well. And so having a dean, again, somebody with the knowledge, the understanding, to not only, to along with me support those IEP meetings, because as a representative at those IEP meetings, we have to have that knowledge and be able to say yes to these resources, no to these resources. And in the intern model, having somebody in there 2 years, I didn't feel as comfortable having that person. They don't, as blunt as possible, is they didn't have the background as much. And you start to learn about the kids, and you learn about the families. So when you're at those meetings, if you have the intern model, while they might be there, they'll get to know them that first year. The second year, they might work with them. The year after that, now I've got a new intern, and we are teaching and learning, or helping that person learn. And, now having Beth, who has been in my building 3 years, I can let her go. We have worked together. I've had her sit in meetings with me. We've worked together. She knows and has learned how to manage those discussions. She has learned the legal obligations that we have. And so it just makes it just makes us being able to implement things with such a higher rate of fidelity. And again, going back to what's best for students, I just truly believe that this dean model is what works best. And I can take what I want to do to just such deeper levels with not only our students, but our staff and with our parents. So thank you guys for listening.
Hello. I just really appreciate the opportunity to visit with you about this internship to Dean. As Mr. Cressup mentioned, I was an intern in his building for 2 years, and now I am the dean at Lewis and Clark. I look back at my intern years, and I have to think about the beginning. In the beginning, it's really developing. I was a classroom teacher, yes, experienced, but I was a classroom teacher, and learning those administrative things certainly took time. It takes a lot of time to build relationships, understand what the school is about, know how to do workflows, or all these administrative things that are very new. So I think developing would be fair. And then the gears start shifting. You're starting to thrive in the position. That would be about the second part of the first year. You're moving along. You are building relationships with the students, with the staff, and teachers, of course, and parents. And then you go into the summer, and there's some hiring, and you're still in that thriving stage. And then it is the next stage, and that is what I would call the leaving stage. And what I mean by that is it would be almost a daily event where someone might say, oh, Mrs. Olson, what are you going to do next year? Where are you going to be? And I'm thinking, I'm not really sure where I'm going to land. And I had a lot of expertise in the building, obviously still more to go and to learn. But it really resonated with me one day when I was outside, and there was some second graders on the track, and they yelled, Mrs. Olson, where are you going to go next year? And I thought, I'm not sure yet, I said, and they said, well, we really hope you are back next year. And that really stuck with me. That is somewhat of the life of an intern. You have that unknown. It is not a position that is there for the long term. And now in the dean role, it is different, very different. There is that relationship piece. I'm a familiar face in the building. I am someone that they will go to. There's relationships. I can ask a student, what did you do? How was hockey this weekend? Or those types of things that I think are really important in a building. Relationships. And because of that, you have trust. Mr. Cressup can give me more responsibilities. I can assist in hiring. I can do workflows. I can call references. I can do professional development, evaluations, both with paraeducators and also with teachers. And he can trust that I am going to do the right thing and do the right procedures and policy. It's all about stability. And the role of the dean provides stability for the school, which is so important with relationships and with trust. So that all kind of encompasses productivity as well. I was very slow in the developing stage, learning. Mr. Cressup knocked at the door once again, right? And checking in, because I wasn't sure and I didn't want to make a mistake that would affect the building. But now with time and developing my skill set, I'm able to do some of those things in the dean model. So again, it really is about the relationship, it's about the trust, and it is about being productive and stable in a building in a dean position. Thank you.
We've included a couple comments. There was, just to ask some teachers their perspective on this. And as we just kind of give you guys more information about how that dean model has been working in the buildings. And then we're looking right now at our needs in 2021. We do see that we're going to projecting an increase again on the south end of town with elementary. So it's mainly at Bennett Elementary, 4 sections. Looks like another 50 to 60 students at that building. Secondary, we have the counselor and registrar that we've talked about because Davies is growing, so their numbers greatly. And then it's on the emerging needs list, and we'll see where we go, but we are saying that we want to look at the conversion of the 3 current interns into deans, and that is, again, something just to talk about. And 3 special education teachers is our estimate right now as we go forward. So we kind of wanted to just lay out some of those pieces, but we wanted to answer any questions that you might have tonight on the administrative positions we added last year.
So to be clear, Missy, so the interns were under the teacher salary portion of our budget, and then the deans go to the administrative
Yep.
line? Okay, thank you. Brandy?
What kind of education background does the area service coordinator of special education have?
Area service coordinator, master's degree in a special education area, typically, the application would say 3 years of experience at least. We look for more than that. That's the area service coordinator. The assistant director, we look at more of a credential for being a director. Maybe master level teacher at minimum with more experience than that, so.
Not so much a question as just an observation from listening to all of this tonight. Some of the words that caught my attention as we're talking about what has been enabled by the addition of these staff. It's enhanced support. Over and over, I heard collaboration, interaction, and relationships are being improved. Being able to focus on strategic planning and process improvement are occurring now. Enhanced coaching, deeper levels of engagement with students, teachers, and parents. And just at the end here, building over and over trust. I think this has been a wise investment in our district. We have very complicated systems, mature systems, and continually maturing, and systems that we're refactoring and revising, and that's enabled by having these kind of people working in our schools, letting our teachers teach, helping our teachers teach, but being able to have somebody else focusing on what is the longer term strategy? How do we improve our coaching? How do we improve these processes? How do we reach those deeper levels of engagement where we want to improve our academic achievements? I really thank you very much for this report tonight. Thank you to everybody that's spoke to us to help us understand what are these positions doing, what is this doing for our district. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the insights.
I just have a short comment. One of Nikki Nelson's comments about managing the paraprofessionals over the long range will change the way our paraprofessionals can be utilized to support students much more efficiently and effectively. And I've heard that when I've been out and about, and it's really nice to hear that because and Beth, if you want to answer it too, one of the things that I've heard is why did we hire deans? We need more teachers. And so this is really a nice way to talk about that because it's allowing that teacher or the para the additional time with the students. Do you have any more to add to that?
Well, I know when I've got into classrooms and observed paraeducators working with our students, Mr. Cressup has really worked hard in the building to develop what we call FADE plans, where we're working on helping our students become more independent and helping them only to access what they can't without that assistance. So it might be, if I'm working with Patty here, it might be the fact that Patty can hold her own book rather than the paraeducator. So maybe it's just a quick observation of something that can really help our students become more independent through just my expertise and my knowledge too.
Can I add to that? And that's why you saw that funny look.
Yeah.
So Kim Myers, one of the area service coordinators, again, said to me the other day, with this addition of the additional area service coordinator, I've been able to go in with Mr. Cressup, with Mrs. Olson, to be able to help analyze the effectiveness of paras as well. And so exciting work. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Thank you.
I have a couple more too. How do you guys determine what school gets the dean, the assistant principal, the interim? How do you decide? Because
So originally when we had just interns, there's a needs assessment, and we'd look at free and reduced lunch, we'd look at population, special education. And Bob might have to help me with this, because really it was a nice spreadsheet that was organized to see that which schools had the highest need going across. So that's what was used to determine where. And each year we have to redo that to look at where the needs are. Does that help, Brandy?
yes, and then I just do have one more. I know, Jason, that you said you did 200 plus IEP meetings last year. So as far as the IEP meetings, so when you guys do meet, is it always the student, the principal, and then the parents as well to actually build that IEP so that you all are in the meeting?
There's 4 required members, parent, classroom teacher, special education teacher, and then an administrative representative, LEA. And so that's the role that I would serve. So it is required at IEP meetings. That answer?
Thank you.
I think one of the things I want to add on to is some of that narrative that we've heard as well is how can we add administrators instead of teachers? And I want to clarify a couple of things. One thing is, I know within our administration, including our building administration, we will never push to add administrators in lieu of teachers. We understand the importance of the work our teachers are doing, and that our job is to support them. The mission and the goal of a school system is to improve student outcomes, and we know that supporting our teachers is a way to get there. So even as we talk about conflicting values or having budgetary restraints, we will never take away the need for a teacher and say we're going to prioritize an administrator instead. It's more of, we want to show the value that when we hire these positions, it's not an admin versus teachers. And as a school district, we know that our priority and our role as administrators is to support our teachers, but sometimes we can't do that work if we're not able to kind of increase our capacity to do that. We hear every day that the role of teachers become more complex, and that is true, but they also need a level of support, and that's what we're trying to provide.
So to build on a couple of those last comments, my first question is really around the needs assessment per building. And Missy, you had mentioned that your department kind of does that. I'm assuming that the principal plays a big role in that as well. I'm wondering if within that needs assessment, if they're working within their building budget and restructuring, or is this in addition to? What does that conversation, or what does that look like?
Well, I was going to say any expense that goes to the building goes into their building budget on there. But I guess if we play it out, if there was a building that, let's say, there was many changes in it and theirs was higher, right? And we don't have more dollars, then we talk about that the needs assessment changes and that building would be prioritized, so it would be moved. Does that make sense on there? I think that's one thing we have to talk about, and I think it's a fair question, is we don't know if we have the right ratio yet across the district when we look at that needs assessment, because one piece that's been very difficult is how large Bennett and Centennial are. And so, but it's different needs because they don't have some of the other needs that buildings have. So I think that is something as a principal group that we have to discuss. And that I'm going to give a lot of credit to the elementary principals. They're an extremely collaborative group that we've had some really good conversations about how are we going to meet the needs across the board. In fact, we just had a very long meeting this morning about some needs and how we're going to go about meeting those. But I do know that we have to challenge ourselves sometimes too, that maybe it is a shared model that we'll have to look at in the future, because we have 14 buildings, or 16 buildings actually at the elementary. But the needs do vary greatly.
Missy, can you talk a little bit about, assuming that we have board support down the road and we go through the merging need process, what is our vision moving forward as a district? Because one of the things that we did consider is we didn't just add a bunch of positions across the board. I think a big part of our conversation was, what is a longer term vision, taking into account that we were going to have some administrative interns that were finishing up their second year and going into that position of unknown that Beth had talked about. So that was a big part of our longer term vision.
I think that one way that this could look, and like we said, we're always willing to take a look at our plans, but right now we have 4 deans and we have 3 that are finishing their second year, and that would put us, let's say, at 7 at the end of this year. In a plan of some kind, if we ever could move to 10 deans across the district, we think that would look a little bit shared. And one of the reasons is we have some big differences in size of buildings. So, and that does cause some differences, but Madison and McKinley, the size of them being around 120 to 135 students is very different than 600 that we're going for at Centennial. And so that means that we do have to look at maybe a shared model, or we have to come up, what is our criteria? What size does that become? But we are seeing, and we talked about this a little bit before, the administrative role, especially when we do have situations that cause us to interrupt instruction and how we're going to respond to that. That is one thing we have felt, and I'm going to say it's anecdotal by how teachers are feeling, but to be able to have a dean and a principal in a building has helped us close the loop faster, meet the needs of the child, contact parents, some of those pieces. So that's where we're seeing it's been very, very helpful.
David?
Missy, could you please tell us which schools have deans currently?
Yes, right now Lincoln has a dean, Ed Clapp has a dean, Lewis and Clark, oh, and Jefferson, yeah.
Bennett and Centennial do not?
They do not have a dean or intern.
Are they you would like to hire 3 more, where would they be going?
Well, the 3 that we have right now, the interns would be the buildings that, if the needs assessment stayed the same at the buildings they're at. So that's HMR, Kennedy, and Eagles, thank you. Yeah. And that was off of that needs assessment that we did last summer. And then Bennett and Centennial, those buildings, just their size is really making me wonder if the needs assessment, the things we've chosen, doesn't rank them high enough on that.
So all of the buildings that you mentioned were all Title I schools? Is that a weighting factor?
It is.
Okay. Okay, Jennifer?
So does the needs assessment criteria, is that something that was modeled or recommended as part of maybe advanced ed, or how did the district
I'm going to let
determine?
Bob answer that because we have used it for a few years.
Okay.
So originally that needs assessment was something that we developed as a system ourselves as we looked at the uniqueness of the different buildings that we have across our system. Everything from size to buildings that are shared or paired, to Title I, special ed, or if they had a unique program within a building. Also, as we looked at how close they were to being school-wide or targeted assistance when it comes to Title I. So that criteria was developed by the district as we came up with a way to say where are some of our highest need buildings, because we all know that two buildings may be the exact same size, but the uniqueness of them creates some unique challenges and sometimes need additional staff to support that.
Okay. Thank you for your report. That was very helpful, and thank you to the presenters. That helps us clear it up in our minds as well. On to 5C, MTSS be a 5-year plan.
Sure. So I think as board members, you're very well aware that a focus for us and a focus that will continue to be a big focus for us, sorry for saying that twice, in Fargo Public Schools is our support around social emotional learning. And we have always had and will continue to have systems around a multi-tiered system of support for academics and behavior in Fargo Public Schools. We are now at a very interesting crossroads where we are seeing not only an increase in special education services that we need to provide supports there, but just also mental and behavioral health services. And I think going back to some of the conversations that we've had with the Explorer Academy, it's important to know that special education is not behavioral health or mental health. They're two separate entities, although there might be students that have needs for both. So our approach is really taking a look at, over the next 5 years, what is going to be a systemic approach to provide supports for the whole child, understanding that academics is one component of their instruction, but their social emotional well-being is very important as well. So we have identified a couple of key components that we want to see that are consistent in our system, regardless of whether it's elementary, middle, or high school. And we know that they're research-based, that have proven outcomes for students. So we're going to present that 5-year plan.
Thank you. I'm Jen Saar. I'm the MTSS coordinator for the district. You know, many of us in the room are educators or former educators, and we have often been told that students should only sit for about 1 minute per their chronological age. So we're on about the 63-minute mark, so I'm a little bit concerned. No. No, I think it's great, and I'm really grateful also to be able to follow up that conversation about the deans, because really what we are talking about today requires our educational leadership to invest and to really be advocates in our buildings for our teachers on an academic side, but then also, like Dr. Gandhi said, when we're talking about behavior and mental health as well, and that's where we're moving. So very excited that we were able to have the State of the Schools address really focus in on some of the pieces that we're going to talk about tonight and the work that we have been doing, and then forecasting about where we're heading in the next few years. So as we think about MTSS, once upon a time, in the 2004 rewriting of IDEA, there was a strong emphasis on response to intervention, and that piece is really focused on the academic side. At the same time came along positive behavior interventions and supports, PBIS, right? So this alphabet soup of how do we support kids academically and with behavior and social emotional needs. And so MTSS really has been about being able to provide supports academically and behaviorally for kids who maybe aren't quite meeting where we would hope that they would be, and also thinking about those kids then who are meeting those where we would hope they'd be, and how do we continue to extend them. So thinking out both sides of the continuum. So as we talk about PBIS, positive behavior interventions and supports, one of the pieces that we've been doing in our PBIS training really focuses around this quote: if a child doesn't know how to read, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to swim, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to multiply, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to drive, we teach. If a child doesn't know how to behave, and it is our natural inclination as adults, as parents, as aunts and uncles, maybe even as grandparents, maybe to really provide or to provide some type of a consequence. But in our world of education, we need to also respond to that. If they don't know how to behave, if they're missing those social and emotional skills, it is our job to teach. Sometimes there also has to be a consequence, but paired alongside that, there also has to be teaching and education, and that's what PBIS is. Our goals wrapped around PBIS nationally are really to create that sense of safety, respect, in order to engage learning, involvement in school life, get kids involved in extracurricular activities, have that shared vision, and that we don't do it alone. It is teachers, it's parents, it's students, it's everybody who works with that child, thinking about what's in the best needs of the student. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about each one of these initiatives in the 5-year plan, what has been accomplished this year, and then what are our immediate next steps as we think about the 2020-2021 school year. So on the left-hand side, if you're looking in this school year, you can see broken down by the grade level groups. All 3 of our grade level groups are either implementing those guidelines for success, which are our Tier 1 school-wide behavioral expectations. Things like be safe, be responsible, be respectful, and in our middle school, have a growth mindset. The high school this year is just in the process of identifying what those are going to look like for implementation in the fall in all 3 of our high schools. The training that we've been doing around PBIS has been focusing on the 10 critical elements, and there's a few of the big ones, right? So being able to report, to teach through SEL instruction, which we're going to talk a little bit more about. Sometimes that's through the lens of restorative practices. In the elementary, we're in the early stages of that. Next year, we'll also move into the early stages of that for the middle level. This year at the elementary, we've also been able to take part in our building learning walks, or those PBIS walkthroughs, looking for those 10 critical elements as we're doing those walkthroughs. And again, that will move into the middle level next year, into the high school the following year. So you can see the transition as we work through those age groups. So as we talk about trauma-informed schools, another big piece that we spent a lot of time talking about at the State of the Schools address, and that trauma-informed schools really is about understanding trauma and children's adverse life experiences and how that impacts their ability to be students, their ability to learn, and our responsibility to provide that safe environment in order to foster their academic and social emotional growth. Specifically, we're talking about how do students feel in terms of safety. There's a big difference between physical safety in our buildings, which we do an excellent job around, and then there's psychological safety. And that's that student's perception of how safe do they feel based on their previous life experiences and what they bring to the table every day. And so it really is our job to be building those relationships so that we can enhance and improve that psychological safety that our kids have as they walk inside our doors and spend their 6+ hours with us each day. So when we look at trauma-informed schools, all of our elementary, ECSE, middle level, and one of our high schools has completed all 5 modules of the trauma-informed, trauma-sensitive schools modules that have been adopted through the state. And all of those buildings also are involved in building compassionate schools, which is taking trauma-informed knowledge to that next step and really saying, how are we as a school going to make some changes, develop some strategies that we're really committing to in the perspective of wanting to build that psychological safety for all of our students. This year as well, I won't go into it too much because in a couple of weeks we'll spend a little more time talking about the UCARO training. And we have had the opportunity to do that training in some of our elementary level C programs this year. And as we think about next year, we're looking at making sure that all of those programs, K through 8, will have that training, which is very trauma sensitive. It's an excellent training for all of our staff, and it pairs nicely with the previous work that we've done in terms of those trauma sensitive schools modules. The UCARO training is an 8-hour training, and mostly what everybody remembers is the PADS, which is about an hour of the entire 8-hour training, because about 6.5 hours really are spent on trauma sensitive strategies and how we just work with kids in general. One of the other elements that's critical to PBIS is social and emotional learning instruction. So as we think about what SEL is, Castle has identified 5 competencies. I often come around that idea that when we talk about self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. I struggle with the term competency because I think all of us at some point, maybe even within the last 24 hours, could think about a time that maybe we haven't been necessarily competent in one of those 5 areas. But we continue to strive to build the skills that are associated with those competencies. And it really is about applying the knowledge, attitudes, and skills in order to understand and manage our emotions. So as we talk about embedding some of that SEL instruction in our buildings, this year 12 of our 14 elementary buildings are teaching 2 to 3 lessons every week in their classrooms for about 15 minutes per lesson. It is part of their morning meeting or classroom meeting time. Some of those buildings also are embracing the restorative practices work that we've been doing and using that circle time to build the relationships and also to continue to address some of the social and emotional skills and competencies, as well as some of the needs that this classroom might be demonstrating. As we look into next year, all of our elementary buildings, so all 14 of them, will be using those lessons with their students 2 to 3 times every week. And then we're having some discussion right now. We met last Monday with the middle level, about 20 teachers, counselors, and administrators who put forth a proposal for what they would like to be doing next year in terms of being able to provide those social and emotional learning opportunities at the middle level. High school, then next year, they'll begin talking about in the following year, what does that look like for them? And one of the pieces that we talk about as we were able to visit with the middle level is, middle level is kind of that awkward phase for a lot of reasons. But even when we're talking about social and emotional learning, it's that transition between needing really specific and direct instruction like we're providing in the elementary, and they're beginning to transition into that more adulthood-like application and real-world application at the high school. And so as we talk for next year, or the following year as we're moving into the high school, we'll really need to address what does that look like for our kids who are knocking on adulthood's door. And then we have restorative practices. As I mentioned at the elementary level, we have just been starting some of that work this year with our PBIS leadership teams and working in collaboration with Lutheran Social Services to really talk about relationship building and problem solving through those 3 green bullets on the screen: the affective restorative statements, restorative questions or impromptu dialogue, as well as proactive circles. One of the pieces that we, on paper, when we take a look at that 5-year plan, next year at the elementary, we would be moving into the tier 2, into more of the responsive circles. But in conversation in our time together, this year with the elementary, one of the pieces that we're learning is, well, that looked beautiful on paper. We might not be quite ready for that yet. We need more time to really hone in on that tier 1. What is good for all? And are we truly implementing and capitalizing on the power in those proactive circles and affective statements? And so at this point, we're in conversations. I think we will spend more of our time, specifically in the fall, being able to do more training around circles and building community and building relationships within our classrooms at the elementary level, with the idea then that we, in the later part of the year, we might begin doing some facilitator training through restorative practices that will focus on the responsive circles and perhaps later getting into meetings and conferences. And then at the middle level, they'll do similar to what the elementaries have done this year and just starting to really understand what are those 3 tier 1 elements that they'll begin working on as well next year. So you can see when we take that MTSS pyramid, that is very common, and when we tip it on its side and we talk about the elements around restorative practices, the first 3, starting from the left, are the 3 that we've been working on at the elementary. And next year, we're really going to hone in on that middle proactive circle, or sometimes referenced as community circles. And then middle school will be working on those 3 as well, with the idea, again, that the following year, high school will begin having more of that training and moving into implementation of restorative practices as well. So this is a snapshot that we used as part of the State of the Schools address, really talking about the elements that we've just worked through. Of course, we're working towards green on this image, but then also being responsive and recognizing that we need to continually evaluate where we're at and be willing to make some of those changes, just like we talked about in terms of that Tier 1 restorative practices. So that is a little snapshot of where we've been, where we're looking to head next year as that immediate next step that is wrapped up in this 5-year implementation plan.
Ready for questions? Okay, I have a couple. The UKERU training. UKERU. I'll mess that up for a while.
Everybody does, it's okay.
So
the important thing is that it's care in the middle, right? And
Got
that
it.
is the emphasis, because it's trauma informed. It is about caring for our kids.
And I appreciate all the training that you do for this, on this within the community as well, from a selfish standpoint. Boys and Girls Club employees go through all this training, as you well know. Will that be open through SEEK as well? Or how does my staff take part in your trainings? I should know this.
Yeah. I haven't heard anything from SEEK. This has been something that has just been Fargo Public Schools based. I don't know, Missy?
When we worked with UKERU for the contract, that is something we'd have to talk to them about, because right now it has to be our trainers can only train if it's a contracted service for Fargo or if it's within. So that's how their piece works. But when we just asked for recertification for next year, they have changed their pricing model. And so Jen and I know that we need to give them a call, because it used to be like by group, like they take X number of people. Now they're saying they're going to charge by person. And so that does change things for us being able to open it up. Yeah.
Just so board members aware, UKERU came to Fargo Public Schools via the National School Boards Association conference last year. So it is, when you receive the presentation in a couple weeks, you will see that it's very easy to misconstrue their intent and what they're trying to do. And I think just as we talk about the history of how that program started, it is not something that's been widespread through the school board, through a lot of K-12 school systems here in the Midwest that I've seen. But we learned about it at the National School Boards Association, and then we brought it to Fargo Public Schools. So it might not be utilized by SEEK or other school districts yet, but I think it's coming.
And I'll just piggyback off of that. In our most recent training, we had another local school district who came to kind of just get a handle and feel for. So, I mean, certainly there's interest and curiosity as well. And I'm excited. I can't, in 2 weeks, we'll get to tell you more about what a great implementation it's been.
So with the PBIS SEL instruction, I noticed here 12 buildings intentionally, 2 to 3 lessons per week, 15 minutes per lesson.
Yes.
Okay, so we all know there's only so much time in the day, and I know how important this is for learning. What was taken away, or how do you balance that or prioritize?
So at our elementaries, they were already utilizing a morning meeting model, and it might not have happened in the morning. They might have had a classroom meeting model after recess or lunch. And so what we really asked is that they repurpose that time to specifically address SEL instruction. So that's what's happening at the elementaries. It wasn't that anything was taken away. It was that perhaps at the time that they were using suddenly became more intentional. As we're looking at the middle level, those are some of the conversations that we've just started as a result of Monday's time. But they too are really desiring, what can we do? How can we restructure differently so that we can have that 10 to 20 minutes a couple of times a week be very intentional, not accidental, not when some kids are present, but when all kids are present, and be purposeful about that time.
Thank you. So my question, backing up to Misty, I believe you gave an answer. Well, I want to build on that. Who currently is in charge of delivering the training?
So we have 7 in-house trainers. We were able to get those certified last September on there. So they can train anyone in our district, is how that works. Now, the UKERU, the actual organization, is the only place that can recertify or certify new, trainers in your district. So that's why we'd have to bring them back now next August or September.
If I may ask a follow-up question, is there opportunity in terms of that training to collaborate with neighboring districts and their trainers, or?
Certainly, if they're willing to come in, because now that pricing model changed too, it's per person, where we could maybe save some dollars. And Jen and I have talked about this, is if we had another district come in, we could split the travel expenses of that person coming to us. But otherwise, it wouldn't save us any more since they charge per person that you train.
Right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Well, good. Thank you for all you do for our students and our school district, Jen. It's always a pleasure to see you. Should we get through this small section of, okay, and then we'll take a break? Item 5D on the agenda is the FAA report. President Mastrud does send her regrets. She was kind enough to let us know that she would not be attending tonight. Dr. Gandhi, superintendent report.
I'll try to make it quick. We've had some staff reports today, so just a couple things. One is, just so board members are aware, we do have middle school students throughout this week. They'll be participating at Sandbag Central to assist the city. I think it's a fantastic opportunity for our students to really show that they're part of a community that's bigger than just themselves, and I'm grateful for our students and parents that are allowing, that are taking that opportunity and going to Sandbag Central. So our middle schools are alternating each day, but that's happening this week. Second thing is just so the board is aware, we are currently in the process of administering a Cognia Advanced Ed survey to students, staffs, or parents. The survey is focused around culture and what's happening in our schools. It's going to be a really interesting survey. The questions are a little bit more unique than sometimes the generalized questions that you'd get in a normal survey, but the survey is also normalized against several school districts across the nation. So we're really kind of excited to see some of that data as it comes back. So that survey is open until April 18th at noon.
I have a question for you. Being new to town, have you made a sandbag yet?
Nope, but maybe this week.
Okay. We need a picture for proof, okay?
Got
Because then
it.
you're not truly a Fargoan until you've made a sandbag. Is that fair? Okay, on that note, let's take a break until 7. Right? That's called. We have a consent agenda in front of us with an HR addendum. I would entertain a motion.
I so move.
Christie?
Seconded.
Thank you, John. Any discussion on the consent agenda? All right, all those in favor of approving that agenda with the HR addendum, please vote by saying yes.
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 Any opposed? No.
Yes.
All right, that carries. On to item 7, business section, we have a superintendent evaluation, memo number 92. Everybody on the board did fill out, complete the statutory, is this the statutory piece, evaluation for Dr. Gandhi? I will note that the board unanimously finds your overall performance to, we're going to keep you. Very good, very satisfactory. Congratulations on a very good, shining review by our board members. We would have to entertain a motion to approve and accept and file that. Is there anything you would like to comment on in the meantime?
Nope, just thank you very much. I'm glad that I'm being kept around. But really, any successes that we have as a district is really a product of our team and our staff, and they're an incredible group to work for, so grateful for that.
Okay, very good.
President Nelson, I would move that we that the March 10th, 2020 superintendent evaluation be accepted and filed.
Second.
Okay, motion's on the floor. Any further discussion? We'll keep up the good work. Anne Marie, would you like to take a roll call, please?
Brian Nelson,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Rodenbiker,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Ani,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
President Nelson.
Yes, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is the ad hoc contract committee. This follows very similar to in years past. I did talk to a couple different board members, and as a result of those conversations, I am going to recommend that 3 people be on that committee: Jennifer Benson, Christy Ulrich, and John Rodenbiker, and Jennifer has agreed to be the chair for that. In order for me to appoint this ad hoc committee, I do need a board action to do so.
President Nelson, I recommend to approve the ad hoc committee of Jennifer Benson, John Rodenbiker, and myself, Christy Ulrich, with Jennifer Benson serving as chair, to meet with Dr. Gandhi to review the superintendent's contract and propose any changes at the April 14th board meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion is on the floor. Any discussion on that? All those in, oh, you need a roll call vote. Thank you.
Paulson,
Yes.
Rodenbiker,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Ani,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Brian Nelson,
Yes.
President Nelson.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you for agreeing to help. The next item on the agenda I had to add as kind of a last-minute item. As you know, I am appointed to the Fargo Cast Public Health as the school board liaison. I was contacted just last week to ask if our board would sign on to a resolution moving the legal age to purchase tobacco and, they call it ENDS, or electronic nicotine delivery systems, to 21. There is a piece of several resolutions on the back page. If we were to approve this, they would present this to the city of Fargo at the city commission meeting, and it would say that the Fargo Board of Education does support this resolution. So with that, I would entertain a motion to bring this for discussion on the floor.
I move that the Fargo Board of Education support the attached Fargo Cast Public Health Resolution recommending the minimum legal age, sale age of tobacco and electronic nicotine delivery devices be raised to age 21.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any questions? Go ahead.
President Nelson, electronic nicotine delivery devices, those would be the vaping devices, the Juul brand type devices?
Exactly. Exactly. Further questions? Go ahead.
I think this is good policy. I think we should support this. I think we had been on the verge of almost eliminating nicotine addiction in our kids before these vaping devices came around, and we're going to be suffering as a society with the addictions of the past decade for decades to come. And I very much support this.
Other comments or questions? All right. Anne Marie?
Rodenbacher,
Yes.
Ulrich,
Yes.
Ani,
Yes.
Knutson,
Yes.
Brian Nelson,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
President Nelson.
Yes, motion carries. I will notify the Fargo Cast Public Health Board, and if you would like to attend the City Commission meeting where this will be presented, is March 23rd. Thank you for your support, Board. On to the Board Reports section of our agenda. Let's start with Rebecca.
All righty. Hopefully you don't hear my dog barking in the background.
We don't.
Let's see, I have about 4 things to mention. First of all, the Communications Committee met February 26th. We continued to review the purpose and the means of the committee. We're getting closer. It seems like we've been working on that for quite some time. But the conversation is moving towards an engagement and advocacy committee. We're not talking about removing a committee, but we're talking about a potential recommendation for a change in the name of the committee. Our next meeting will be March 25th at 7:30 in the morning. And at that meeting, we'll focus on evaluating a little bit more of the language that will go into the purpose and the means of what, again, likely would be a recommendation for a new name for the committee. And so then that would come in front of the board at an appropriate time. I attended the Native American Commission meeting last week, and at that meeting, I learned quite a bit, but 2 items I thought that would be interesting for you to know about would be that there is, through the Plains Art Museum, something called the Northern Plains Summer Arts Institute. It's a 2-week intensive art program for Native American high school students that are seeking art education that mixes fundamentals in art with their connection to their cultural identity. And so, as I mentioned, that's a program that's partly conducted by through the Plains Art Museum. I connected the director of the museum with Melody Stabner, our Native American or our Indian Ed coordinator, and so there's been dialogue between the 2 of them already with sharing that information. Secondly, in the works that will be happening February 2021 through December of 2023 at the Yumkump Center, the individual that serves as the director of programming at the Historical and Cultural Society of Clay County talked with us about an exhibit that is going to be celebrating 150 years of the towns and the counties in the Clay and Cass County area. And part of that elaborate exhibit will focus on Native American history, specifically regarding conflicts, massacres, treaties, and the boarding schools that occurred on their land prior to European settlers arriving. And so I also am going to make a connection with Melody to this individual because he spoke to us asking for help in helping to plan that exhibit. So I thought Melody might be able to share that information out with our Native American families. Let's see. Today I intended to participate in the webinar. I think all of us board members received information in an email regarding a webinar that the North Dakota Department of Health put on. It was to inform K-12 and child care providers regarding the COVID-19 response. And I was not able to get on the call. I think there were there were so many participants that I wasn't able to get on. But the Department of Health did email me a link to that webinar, and so I'll share that with Anne Marie in case and that she could share that with us as board members. I thought it might be interesting to just for us to learn about. The last item is that I attended on March 4th a legacy zone planning meeting, and Tony Grinberg had sent out information that I had received on that. Maybe it went to all board members, I'm not sure. But that meeting was held at the Chamber of Commerce over at the Young Comp Center. And really the concept around this meeting, I'll just read what Tony had provided to us here. So the concept of our discussion is this: a reinvestment proposed that utilizes state funding and or interest earnings from legacy funds matched by local government and private sector funding to preserve and repair post-World War II era single-family homes and surrounding infrastructure. The reinvestment program would be activated in city designated areas across North Dakota known as legacy zones. So we were talking about this in terms of a general idea, and talking about the possibility of legislation being crafted at some point. So if that was going to be the plan, that, you know, those kinds of conversations need to start now. I'm not really sure where it's going to go from here, but it sounds like there's going to be a meeting of this group. About 18 individuals were at the meeting. Next meeting would be in April. So I will update you as I learn more on that, and that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. You weren't the only one that could not get on that call today. So we tried. Oh, she's just done with us. Did you leave us, Rebecca? I guess she did. She's done. Oh, let's start with Brian, please.
I attended a planning meeting last Friday. I'm sorry about the team that I let down today. We had a GAC meeting today, and I missed it because I forgot. Which proves again you should write things down. You can't always just rely on your memory. And I'm looking forward this week in my schools, my South Dakota schools at my regular job are on spring break on Thursday and Friday. So half the day I'm going to spend at Kennedy and Discovery, and so at each day. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then keep in mind I'm going to go there not to disturb people. I just want to go there and just feel it and experience it. And I'm not looking for anything. I'm just going there open-minded just to watch the experience of the kids. I had a blast earlier this fall when I was there, and I'm expecting I'm going to have a lot of fun this time too. So that's my motivations for doing what I'm doing.
Thank you. Brandy.
Thank you. I did attend Government Affairs Committee this morning, and then I also went to the PTA meeting yesterday at North High, and that was a good meeting. They're coming up with some new plans, and so stuff will be rolled out to everyone soon. And I just want to say to all the parents out there, just try to get involved with your schools and in your PTA. I know that there's some schools that are really, really strong PTA and some schools that are lacking some members. So I just want to give a shout out to the public who do have kids in school to just put your hat in and help out the schools on that PTA, because they do a lot for the teachers and the kids. So please do that. And then my visit for March 18th, I will be going to the academic breakfast over at North High, and then I will be doing my North High visit as well that day. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with the PTA thing. Well said. Christy.
Thank you. And I would echo those PTA words as well. As a past PTA president, there's never enough members, and there's so much work that happens in the schools, and it's very good for all. So thank you. I had a planning meeting this past Friday on the 6th.
She's done. Very good. And you did a darn good job leading that planning meeting. Thank you so much. David.
Okay, I was part of the Communications Committee meeting on the 26th. I attended the Centennial PTO on the 30th. On the 4th, we had a governing board meeting of the Cass County Career Technical Ed Center. And I became aware of something that I hadn't heard of before. There is a North Dakota Career Builder Scholarship and Loan Repayment Program that where students can get up to $17,000. Your eligibility is determined through the North Dakota University system, and they determine the programs that would be eligible for this. Sounds like a heck of a program. If you were interested, the best thing to do is to contact the North Dakota University system, and I have a phone number and a web address if you were interested in that. And then I got up bright and early this morning and went to the Government Affairs Committee meeting, which was made doubly difficult with this new time. It's dark out there. That's it.
Last but not least, John.
Thank you. I regret that I missed a couple of committee meetings a couple of weeks ago due to my personal travel, and it's also made scheduling the next negotiations committee meeting difficult, but I am working with Jolynn to try and nail down a date and time for that. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks here, I am working on that. I was able to attend the Ben Franklin musical. They did Schoolhouse Rocks just in time for Music in Our Schools Month here. You know, whenever we go to these things, we're always just astounded by the talent that the staff were able to pull out of these kids. These were, you know, middle schoolers performing, dancing choreography, the lighting, the sound was run by them, just really cool. And what I really loved seeing, I went to it twice, and at the Saturday matinee, the first 3 rows were full of North students who came back to cheer on the drama kids at Ben Franklin. And at the end of each piece, they were cheering like somebody had just scored a touchdown, or, you know, it was just fantastic to see that level of engagement that our students have in each other, and that they develop in the cultures that we have in our schools. I also attended the North Choir concert, and there might be a theme here. My daughter's very active in music in our schools, and it's reflective in my personal experience of what we saw tonight and heard tonight of the importance of arts impacting all areas of our curriculum and our students' development. That North Choir concert was really cool. The 8th graders from Ben Franklin got to perform along with the high school students, and the variety of opportunities for the vocal music at North and throughout our district is really incredible, and it's powerful. And I'm looking forward to this Thursday, the North Orchestra concert, where, again, the 8th graders from Ben Franklin will be able to perform with the high school students, and we'll be able to see all the different opportunities and the skills and talent that they've developed over the year. And I'm looking forward to scheduling a bunch of school visits here in March, including, and so I'm very excited. I think you've heard me before say how much I love having lunch in our schools, and I think our food is actually really tasty and nutritious. I have been provided the opportunity to get a behind-the-scenes look at our nutrition services at Davies, including serving lunch down there. So I can't wait to report back on that experience. And one question I have is looking at our president's report here, reminding us that the NSBA annual conference is supposed to be coming up within a month at the beginning of April. Have we heard of anything of the potential impact of this COVID-19 yet on that conference, and how that might impact our planning and attendance?
I think we received 2 emails. Did you guys not receive them? Okay, and it
If
said
I did, I'm sorry, I'm
okay.
a little behind on my
Yep.
correspondence.
Last week they said they would still hold it, and then I think yesterday or today they said that they'd refund if you weren't comfortable going, or if you were to return to the district and be working with kids. Was how I understood it. Did I relay that properly?
Correct. They are giving an option for a refund if anyone feels like they can't go.
Thank you. That is my report.
Wonderful. I attended the planning committee as well. Interesting committee that will have a lot of work forthcoming due to budget discussions. This morning, Governmental Affairs Committee, that committee will have a lot of work, and so we started our list of what we would like to focus upon. I had, Jefferson is my liaison school, and in a roundabout way, I helped coordinate a meeting between Charism and the schools where they provide check and connect services. We know that that is an outstanding program. With the dissolution of Charism, they are trying to determine the future and the viability of the check and connect program. Missy attended as well, as did the principals from Jefferson, Ed Clapp, and CBE. And then Charism attended, as well as John Fisher, who used to work at Charism. Now he's with Friends of the Children. So we are determining if that's financially feasible, and even if it is, which nonprofit or company will employ those employees. The Boys and Girls Club is only absorbing their out-of-school programming. So more soon, but I think that that is a great outcomes for our Jefferson and Ed Clapp students. So hopefully we can get that going. Let's see. I did make it on the COVID-19 call for K-12 and childcare. One of the only questions I had was, and this was an unknown from the state, what happens if we close schools and for those kids that have free and reduced lunch, how do we get them fed? They were talking about just different distribution points, and I completely have faith in administration to get that done, but something I didn't think of. And then if we do close schools, somehow we got to keep the kids home. They can't go to the mall. They shouldn't go to the movies. You know, and so there was some fallout there. Well, you know what's going to happen. So some interesting things there. And then I was also interested, they said no online education substitute options for missed hours. Is that true?
We have legislative restrictions in the state of North Dakota.
That answers my question. Okay, let's see here. And then, here's a little heads up, if you need something to do this weekend, HMR is my liaison school. I believe this is through Missoula. They're doing the Snow Queen play on Saturday, March 14th at Ben Franklin Middle School. And the show times are 3 o'clock and 5:30. So these are Horseman Roosevelt students performing. So that should be fun if you need something to do on Saturday. President's report, Governance Committee meeting is March 26th. March 31st, we have determined would be a good date to do school board information sessions for candidates. In the past, they have been after the filing deadline and before, but what I am finding, when I'm meeting with several people, once they find out the timeline commitments, they kind of shy away, and once their name is past the filing date, they're stuck on the ballot, and we're trying to prevent some confusion and potential embarrassment for some of those people that wanted to back out. So March 31st at 5:30, that's the 5th Tuesday of the month. So Anne Marie and I are going to put something together there. You're welcome to attend. National School Board is coming up here. As far as graduation, I've only heard from one person as to which school he or she wanted. So if you have any preferences, throw those my and Anne Marie's way.
Robin, I have the list for you for graduation to be able to send to you.
Well, good. Thank you. Thank you. And then I think, okay, you've got that. Can you think of anything else, Anne Marie? I think we're good.
The only thing I'd note is Rebecca forwarded that email from NSBA regarding a change. If you wish to change to not go to NSBA, there is a deadline of tomorrow.
Okay. How does that affect our airline?
I don't know. I'd have to contact United about that. I know just for a personal trip coming up myself, that airline, which is not the airline you guys are on, said that they would take cancellations because of it, but we'd have to check with United, who some of you are on.
Okay. So if you had a time deadline, what would that be, Anne Marie?
Probably tomorrow, like by 10 a.m. I mean, to do all those things and make sure we hit the deadlines.
Okay. Very good. I believe that is our entire agenda. Can't find my agenda, but I know that we are finished with the meeting, and so our next meeting is Tuesday, March 24th. This meeting is adjourned.